The glass jar shattered against the stone floor, and Vex the fire imp tasted freedom for the first time in 300 years. The ancient wizard had grown careless, his wrinkled hands trembling as he reached for yet another dusty tome. One wrong movement, one bump against the shelf, and the magical prison that had held Vex for centuries lay in fragments around his small, flickering form. Vex stretched his wings, feeling the heat build within his tiny chest. He was no larger than a house cat, but the fire that burned inside him could level buildings. His skin glowed like molten copper, and his eyes were twin flames of pure orange light. The wizard turned slowly, his face going pale as he realized what had happened. "No," the old man whispered, reaching for his staff. "Stay where you are, creature. I command you." Vex laughed, and sparks flew from his mouth. The binding spells that had kept him contained were gone now, dissolved with the enchanted glass that had been his prison. He shot toward the ceiling, leaving a trail of smoke and embers behind him. The wizard shouted words of power, but they meant nothing now. Vex found the window and crashed through it, scattering broken glass across the tower's exterior. The city of Einhold spread below him like a feast. Thousands of wooden buildings, thatched roofs, cloth awnings, and paper lanterns stretched in every direction. Vex had dreamed of this moment for so long. He had watched through the jar's curved walls as the wizard worked, as servants came and went, as the city grew and changed beyond the tower's windows. Now he would make them all pay for his imprisonment. He dove toward the marketplace first. The humans looked up in confusion as he streaked across the sky like a falling star. Then he opened his mouth and breathed fire across a row of merchant stalls. The cloth ignited instantly. People screamed and scattered as flames leaped from booth to booth. Vex laughed again, spinning through the smoke and chaos. A man threw a bucket of water at him, but it turned to steam before it could touch his burning skin. A woman tried to hit him with a broom, and he melted it to ash in her hands. The fire was spreading now, jumping from building to building with hungry speed. Vex rose higher, watching his beautiful destruction with pride. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of running away, the humans began running toward the fires. They formed lines, passing buckets from hand to hand with remarkable speed. Others beat at the flames with wet blankets. A group of young men climbed onto roofs, pulling apart the burning sections before the fire could spread further. Vex frowned and dove down again, breathing more fire across a new section of the market. But the humans adapted quickly. They had already organized themselves into groups. Some fought the fires directly, while others cleared the streets of anything that could burn. Children ran through the chaos, carrying messages between the different groups. An old woman stood in the center of the market square, shouting orders. She pointed and gestured, and people followed her commands without question. Vex could not understand it. Where was the panic? Where was the fear? These creatures should have been trampling each other in their rush to escape. He attacked the old woman, breathing a stream of fire directly at her. But a young man threw himself in front of her, raising a metal shield that deflected the flames. Two more humans rushed forward with long poles, trying to knock Vex from the sky. He dodged easily, but their courage surprised him. The wizard's tower was burning now too. Vex had set it aflame before he left, wanting to destroy everything his captor owned. But as he watched, a group of humans rushed inside the burning building. They emerged moments later, carrying the old wizard between them. Despite everything, they were saving the very man who had kept such a dangerous creature imprisoned above their city. Vex did not understand these beings. In the demon realms, the weak fled from the strong. The old and sick were left behind. But here, humans risked their own lives to save others. It made no sense to him. He decided to cause more destruction. He flew toward the harbor, where dozens of ships sat at anchor. Their wooden hulls and canvas sails would burn beautifully, but the sailors saw him coming. They raised their own sails and began moving their ships away from the docks. Others dumped barrels of water across their decks, soaking everything that might catch fire. Vex attacked the closest ship, setting its rigging ablaze. The crew did not abandon their vessel. Instead, they climbed the burning masts, cutting away the flaming ropes before the fire could spread to the hull. One man's hands were badly burned, but he kept working, teeth clenched against the pain. Another sailor fell into the water, and 3 of his companions dove in after him without hesitation. The fire imp felt something strange building in his chest. It was not fire. It was something he had never experienced before. Confusion, perhaps, or something close to doubt. He flew back toward the city center, determined to cause more damage. But the humans had organized even more effectively now. A group of city guards had formed a line across the main street, holding shields above their heads. When Vex flew over them, they raised their shields together, creating a wall of polished metal that reflected his flames back at him. The heat did not hurt Vex, but the tactics surprised him. These creatures could not harm him directly, but they were finding ways to limit his destruction. They were learning, adapting, fighting back with nothing but their own determination and cleverness. A bell began ringing somewhere in the city. Then another bell joined it, and another. Soon the entire city was filled with the sound of ringing bells. People emerged from buildings that Vex had not yet attacked, already carrying buckets and blankets. They had warning systems, he realized. They were communicating across the entire city, preparing defenses before he could even reach them. Vex set fire to a warehouse near the docks. Within minutes, a crowd of humans had surrounded the building. They could not save it, but they tore down the structures on either side, creating a gap that the flames could not cross. They sacrificed some buildings to save others. It was strategic, intelligent, and infuriatingly effective. The fire imp flew higher, looking down at the city with growing frustration. Yes, there was damage. Yes, there were fires burning. But they were contained, controlled, slowly being extinguished by the endless streams of water and the tireless efforts of the human defenders. He had imagined the entire city burning to ash, but these stubborn creatures refused to let that happen. A group of children had gathered in a small plaza, filling buckets from a fountain. They could not have been more than 8 or 9 years old, but they worked together with serious expressions, handing full buckets to the adults who ran past. One little girl looked up and saw Vex hovering above them. She did not scream or run. She just picked up another bucket and kept working. Something cracked inside the fire imp. He had expected terror. He had expected chaos. He had expected the humans to break apart and flee, leaving their city to burn. But they had done none of those things. They had faced his fire with water and determination. They had organized themselves without magic, without supernatural powers, using nothing but their own strength and their unshakable bond with each other. In the demon realms, Vex was considered a powerful being. He could destroy and burn and kill. But these humans possessed something he did not understand. They had courage that did not come from strength. They had loyalty that did not come from fear. They protected each other not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The wizard appeared in the street below, supported by 2 young people. His robes were singed and his face was covered in soot, but he was alive. He raised his staff and shouted words of power, but his voice was weak. The spell fizzled and died before it could reach Vex, but the humans did not give up. They formed a circle around the wizard, protecting him with their bodies. They raised their shields and buckets and brooms, ready to fight with whatever they had. They knew they could not win. They knew Vex could burn them all to ash. But they stood their ground anyway. Vex hovered above them, fire building in his chest. He could end this now. He could burn through their pathetic defenses and destroy them all. But something held him back. These creatures had earned something from him. Not respect, exactly. Something stranger. Something that felt almost like admiration. He had spent 300 years in a jar, watching these beings through curved glass. He had seen them fight and argue and compete with each other. He had assumed they were weak, divided, easy to break. But he had been wrong. When danger came, they came together. When fire threatened their homes, they faced it side by side. They were stronger together than any demon Vex had ever known. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The fires were mostly under control. Smoke still rose from a dozen different places, but the humans had won. They had faced a creature of pure destruction and refused to be destroyed. Vex made his decision. He turned away from the city and flew toward the distant mountains. He would find a new place to make his home, far from these strange and stubborn creatures. Perhaps he would cause destruction there instead. Or perhaps he would simply rest and think about what he had witnessed today. Behind him, the humans began to cheer. They had survived. Their city was damaged but not destroyed. Their people were hurt but not broken. They had faced fire itself and emerged victorious. The wizard watched the fire imp disappear over the mountains. He was exhausted and injured, but he was smiling. One of his rescuers, a young blacksmith with burned hands, asked him why he was smiling. The old wizard shook his head slowly. "I kept that creature imprisoned for 300 years," he said. "I thought I was protecting the city from destruction. But today I learned something important." "What is that?" the blacksmith asked. "I learned that the people of this city do not need my protection," the wizard replied. "They are stronger than any fire, any demon, any magic I could ever create. They protect each other." The blacksmith smiled despite the pain in his hands. Around them, the people of Ironhold were already beginning to rebuild. They cleared rubble and treated wounds and comforted those who had lost property. They shared food and water with those who needed it. They made plans for tomorrow. Far away in the mountains, Vex the fire imp found a cave and curled up inside it. For the first time in his long existence, he did not dream of destruction. Instead, he dreamed of those strange, brave, impossibly stubborn creatures who had faced his flames and refused to break. He did not understand them. Perhaps he never would, but he knew one thing for certain. He would never underestimate humans again. The city of Ironhold burned that night, but it did not fall. Its people fought the fire and won. They had proven something important, not just to the fire imp, but to themselves. They were not helpless. They were not weak. Together, they could face any threat and survive. And in the morning, when the sun rose over the damaged but still standing city, they began the work of rebuilding. Because that is what humans do. They fall down and they get back up. They face destruction and they create something new. They lose battles, but they never stop fighting. The fire imp was gone, but his legacy remained. The people of Ironhold would tell stories about that night for generations. They would remember the fire and the fear and the chaos. But mostly, they would remember how they had stood together, how they had protected each other, how they had proven that courage and determination could defeat even the most powerful enemy. And somewhere in the mountains, a small creature made of fire and anger heard those stories on the wind. And for reasons he could not explain, he smiled.